Bits and Bones, my name is Slady V and welcome to my channel where I talk about movies and books and everything in between and occasionally talk about my journey as a writer/artist. If you're actually here for, hearing me talk about books, you should be impressed compared to last month's reading wrap-up because I'm actually doing it in a slightly timely manner. Sorry about that, by the way. Over the last... Oh god, what even month was it? It was March. Over the month of March, I didn't read nearly as much as I thought I would. I'm still working on The Lovely Bones, which I've been working on that entire time. It's just very heavy for me, and I'm having a hard time getting through it. I also expected to wrap up The Toilet Zone during that month, but it took a lot longer than expected. I was chipping away at basically one story a day on my lunch breaks, so that took a lot longer than it normally would have. For the month of March, I actually only read graphic novels, apparently. Despite the fact that I was reading other genres, I only finished graphic novels during the month of March. So the ones that I did read was Nimona by Noelle Stevenson and Heartstopper 1 and 2 by Alice Oseman. If you read my other reading wrap-ups, you'll know that I read Noelle Stevenson's memoir, and that's why I picked up Nimona. I felt like she was a very interesting personality, and I wanted to see what her fully creative work would look like, especially since knowing that she is a showrunner for, I think it was the new She-Ra adaptation over on Netflix. I had years and years ago seen slight excerpts or like teasers, basically comics, to promote her work Nimona on Instagram and other sites where it's a bunch of other people promoting her stuff, but I wasn't following her specifically, which is why I hadn't read it beforehand, besides the fact that I hadn't read graphic novels very much in my life before this point, which is a sad, disappointing why didn't I do that more? Because Nimona was so adorable. It, in a weird way, hit a very specific niche, but like not. Nimona was a story that is applicable to literally all ages. I think that a public schooler could read it, and I feel like me as an adult could read it and get equally, if not more, enjoyment out of it. Because I'm coming at it as an adult, I have a preconstructed knowledge of like how certain tropes and like storylines are supposed to play out. And what made Nimona so good was that it stuck within exactly what you expected to happen in the story, but it also used characters and humor and little ticks of development that made it so much more engaging, and it didn't feel like it was just overused. It was just happening because this happens all the time. This is what happens, which is the villain is actually the kind of good guy, like the anti-hero, kind of like Megamind, and the good guy's the bad guy, and they have like this sort of chemistry, and then you have the side character that's actually the voice of reason coming in, making sense of most things for you and being sort of the vehicle for us as the reader as we go through the development of their story and where it is going to end. Honestly, Nimona just had so many perfectly timed bits of humor that it was just one, extremely enjoyable to look at visually, extremely enjoyable to read based on the flow and pacing of everything. It never dragged, it never focused on anything too much because it is something that we should already kind of expect, but also brings it to us in the perfect amount. And it was just enjoyable because the writing was just adorable. I'm finding more and more, the more graphic novels that I'm reading, the more that I am actually like chuckling and laughing out loud while reading, which is kind of interesting and not something that I ever expected I was going to be that kind of person. But I'm glad that I am, and it's really kind of exciting. It makes me want to read graphic novels more and more. Nimona is just a perfect standalone fantasy story about a villain sidekick, and each of the characters, the villain, the hero, and the main character Nimona herself, finding themselves their way through the relationships that they have with one another. There is literally only one thing that didn't make Nimona absolutely like 100% perfect for me, which was, I'm one of those people, like, although I don't need it blatantly said or extra overly lengthy exposition, it is nice to understand, or at least have somewhere to go outside of the content itself to find an answer that I have, or an answer for a question that is quite integral to the story. Although it is hinted at Nimona's identity, and Nimona left me wanting just a tiny bit more. I wanted to know more about Nimona, who she was before she was introduced to the story. Now, this was a very obvious writer's decision, which I respect the hell out of. You don't have to tell your reader every single thing. And in a weird way, I think the ending of the story worked a bit better that way, although this is a standalone and we are never going to get a sequel, and I'm never going to get to actually know, like, who Nimona is, where she came from, and what becomes of them really after the end of the story. I do still kind of want to know. as a little nerd, I like lore. I haven't delved too hard into it. I will go farther into Noelle Stevenson's work, and I hope that I can find more on the lore of Nimona. So that's a hope of mine, but the book itself did not give me that satisfaction, which is literally the only drawback that I have for the novel itself. It gets a 4.5 out of 5. I also read Heartstopper Volume 1 and 2. I would have read more of them. I read both of them in one sitting, like literally within 2 hours, but my library didn't have the other volumes available, so I'm kind of screwed out of that one. Heartstopper is literally just the story of a young couple. Eventually they become a couple. I don't think that's a spoiler. It's a romance graphic novel, and trying to discover who they are, their sexuality in a world like our world. It just felt not necessarily like real and very realistic. It is definitely like a less complicated version of all the struggles that we do tend to go through, but it had really good representation for someone that thought they knew what they liked, and then trying to figure out with their new emotions, their new experiences that conflict with what they'd already known, how they deal with that, how other people deal with that. It's basically just a coming of age story. It's very cute. It's just cute. That's all it is. It's a very feel good graphic novel series. So if you want something to just like cleanse yourself, to feel good for a little bit, then I definitely recommend Heartstopper. It's not perfect and it's not overly deep or anything, but it is a good palate cleanser, and sometimes it's just nice to read something nice. As much as the series continues, and I have not read it, I am sure that it can get much deeper into topics of sexuality, discovering yourself, but at the same time, this specific series, I don't think it needs to, and I hope that it doesn't. Because the whole point of not the whole point, but like one of the best parts about this is just the fact that you get to read something that feels nice and happy, and it has the kind of inclusion that a lot of other things are missing. What do you do when you thought you liked girls this whole time and then you meet one boy and suddenly you're attracted to him? What does that make you? How do you deal with that? It's just very wholesome. It's very heartfelt on the journey that the characters go through. The Heartstopper books, I'm going to give a 3.5 out of 5 because it's good, it's well-rounded. It doesn't necessarily have anything missing because I don't think it needs to go any deeper or be any more dramatic than what it is, which is a nice feel-good graphic novel. So it's perfect in and of itself. It's just not, raising the bar of anything. It is just creating something that we need a bit more of in our everyday lives. When I can get my hands on them, I am definitely reading the other volumes too. So yeah, I guess, again, I only read 3 things during the last month, and I'm dropping the ball a little bit, but I will be a good booktuber eventually, when I have time. As always, when I come across books that I have a lot more to say about, they will get their own individual review. But for now, as wrap-ups go, that was the end of my March 2021, and if you've read any of these, or if based on those you have any suggestions for other like really cute feel-good graphic novels, I'm totally down for those right now. Please recommend some. I loved both Nimona and the Heartstopper novels, and I hope to continue to fill my life with more nice, heartfelt things like that, because in this time, I think we all need that a little bit. So that's the end of the video. If you like my content, you can like and subscribe my channel, pretty please. If you want to support me, I have my Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee linked in the description below. As always, thank you just so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.